Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien. Here on the morning of Friday, December 8th, 2023, TGIF. And today's commentary is on Americans and intervention or getting involved in other people's affairs. The Democrats are crying foul because the Republicans are not letting them give money to Israel and Ukraine. But both parties are responsible for the mess we're in today, Republicans and Democrats. You must understand your nation. You were a xenophobic nation to start with, okay? And if you don't know what xenophobic is, look it up in the dictionary. And sometimes it was harsh, sometimes it was not. Then you started this way of thinking that's caused worldwide problems in the last 80 to 90 years. Let me get to this later on the problems that you got. But when you started your nation back in 1776, you were like Israel is today. I need help. Yeah. So you sent every Tom, Dick, and Harry you could find to different places. You sent Benjamin Franklin to France. And, well, in 1776, and you sent him for one reason only, to get assistance from Louis the 16th. Oh, boy. And Louis, you got to remember Louis. A nice young kid in 1769 when his grandfather, Louis the 15th, croaked. Yeah. But remember, his grandfather was trying to be like his father, I guess, Louis the 14th. Yeah. Now remember, Louis the 14th fought disastrous wars with countries. England was one of them. And, all kinds of wars. And they were called different things. Queen Anne's War, William's War, you name it, they were there. But anyway, when he kicked the bucket in 1715, France have had it. And England, under George the First, was left handing the bag, just like the Americans were left handing the bag after World War II. So England became a powerhouse, just like America became a powerhouse. France kind of receded into, Louis the 15th there. And, well, Louis the 15th's son, he croaked, unfortunately. So his grandson, Louis the 16th, succeeded him in 1769. After that disastrous world war he had fought with England, called the 7 Years' War, with a lot of other countries. In America, you know it as the French and Indian War. And anyway, the Treaty of Paris of 1763 left a bitter taste on Louis the 16th's mouth. And he was concerned about that. We got to get even with those pay-holes over there, those British, those... yeah, So you see what I mean? So when the Americans decided to kick the British in the butt, and say, we don't want you anymore here. Kick out, boys. Yeah. And the British told them, well, let's see who works right. We'll show you what we mean by British pride. And they gave it to you. Look at poor Mr. George Washington and Valley Forge in 1776. Yeah. But maybe somebody from the future, like they did in Star Trek, came around and made him change his mind and made him go to Princeton and attack the garrison there with the Haitians, which changed the war's outlook a little bit because the Americans were about ready to call it quits in December of 1776. They were freezing their booties off, and there was no money to pay them, so their enlistments were over, and gone. But the war kept on going because of the Jersey Devil, supposedly anyway, according to George Washington. Star Trek, one of the fan movies in Star Trek made this an interesting thing with the crew of the starship Farragut going back to a different timeline and making George Washington see the light and get the boat. More to speak. Well, anyway, that made the United States a little bit more viable. So Franklin was sent over to King Louis, and he had all kinds of fun with the ladies over there. So they say. Anyway, in 1778 or 1777, after the disastrous campaign by General Burgoyne in Saratoga. Oh, General Burgoyne, boy. He reminds me of General Braddock, 20 plus years before him under George Washington. Yeah, General Braddock. Oh, boy. What a disastrous campaign that was. Same with General Burgoyne. Yeah. Losing Ticonderoga. Well, the Americans fought their first battle, won in 1777. So Louis XIV decided, we'll give you a fleet and we'll give you some money. What was it, 15 million or something like that, I believe. Anyway, the U.S. was in debt to the French for about $15 to $20 million at the end of the war. Yeah, but that's a different story. But anyway, he intervened. And when you intervene in somebody else's affair, plus remember, he had a bone to pick with the British because of his grandfather's defeat in the 7 Years' War, a.k.a. French and Indian War. Yeah. Well, as you Americans understand, or you should understand by now, interfering in other people's affairs has the tendency of kicking you back in the butt. Okay? If you remember, you interfered after World War II, you became what you called a superpower. Yeah, and started interfering all over the place. Yeah, well, you were doing that before that in some instances here and there. Panama in 1903, Nicaragua a few times in the 1850s. You don't remember that, huh? Okay. But anyway, like Louis XVI, you guys went over there to South Vietnam and you should have known that the French left there with their tails between their legs. Yeah, because they had a bitter guerrilla war that was fought against them. Bitter. I mean, they lost a lot of people in France. Ooh, a lot of French lost their lives in Vietnam, till 1954. Yeah, they don't tell you that in history books, do they? Huh? Well, intervention Americans. You intervened in Vietnam and it cost you 58,000 lives for nothing. Because what was the effect of that? The Johnson administration said it was the domino effect. We got to stop the domino effect. Yeah, okay. And what happened after you signed the treaty with Nixon and Kissinger? Later, 1973, the domino effect. South Vietnam fell in 1975, and in quick succession, Cambodia and Laos fell too. So, Indochina was communist. Pathet Lao and the Khmer Rouge had their way. Yeah. And the North Vietnamese, went over there and said, oh, it's Ho Chi Minh, people, Ho Chi Minh. 58,000 of your citizens never got to be your citizens because they're some buried in the States, some buried over there, and some you don't know where they are. And that was intervention. Then you went and intervened other places. Grenada, Nicaragua again. Yeah. Panama. The Middle East. And if you add all those together, you probably have, 15,000, 20,000 dead? Somewhere around in there? In the last 40 years, I think you got about 20 to 25,000 dead if you add them all together. 20 to 25,000 dead for what? And money that you have spent all over the place. Arms for hostages. Ooh, boy, that was an Iraq-Contra affair, right? Ooh, yeah. And now the United States is pushing for money for Ukraine and money for Israel. Israel is a lost cause. It's been a lost cause since the Egyptians and the Hittites got together back in 1250 BCE. And like I said, talk to all the people that are, just call them back from the grave and say, okay, you guys, Mr. Hattusis the first of Hittites and Ramses II of Egypt, can you tell me what did you gain from the fight over in Kadesh? Yeah. Or the rulers of Assyria, you invaded and took over Israel and took over Palestine there. What did you gain there when you took them over in 722 BCE? Or Mr. Nebuchadnezzar, when you took the Jews off from Judea, when you invaded and conquered it back in 586 BCE, what did you get? Yeah. I wonder what those guys would say if you put them up in the witness stand and say, this is 2023, I want to know what happened in your time. Yeah. Really? They would probably tell you, we made the worst mistakes of our lives and we paid for it. Because, that Ramses II wasn't the same. Hattusis lost his empire shortly afterwards. And the Egyptians went into a downgrade after that. By the time Ramses died in 1229, 1227 BCE, they were going on a decline. And his successor, 100 years later, or almost, Ramses III, well, he had to worry about the sea people. Oh, boy, he was really in decline there. Egypt was conquered by different people, including the Greeks. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, and don't forget, at one time, the Ramses, the Iranians, as the Persians conquered them, too. Don't forget that. But getting back to the Americans. In the last 85 years or so, with all this intervention you guys have done, and all the money that you've flowed all over the place on the planet, especially to the Middle East and Egypt and Israel, and now the money that's going to Ukraine, what are you accomplishing? Really? You're safeguarding the democracy. Are you really? Let me know. And I'm not pro or against. I'm just telling you as an alien from another planet, what have you accomplished? Good day.